guys? It's your guy Brandon back with more EPI related content. For those new here, EPI is a number I came up with to quantify a champion. Some time ago, I set out to see how the regular season impacts the postseason. I was tired of the same lazy narrative. You have to go through lumps to get to the top. And while that is true, there has to be more to it than just that. So I went looking. After hours of digging, I came up with 5 numbers that stood out: wins, margin of victory, offensive rating rank, defensive rating rank, and net rating. Of those numbers, I normalized them by taking the average of each champion since 1989. For instance, the average wins from a finals champ since 1989 is 59.55, or rounded up to 60. And let's say Team A has 65 wins and Team B has 54 wins. 65 divided by 60 is 1.08, and 54 divided by 60 comes out to 0.90. I did this for each category, and then I took a look and saw what mattered the most based on the higher normalized averages across all the champs. It came out to margin of victory, then net rating, then wins, then offensive and defensive rating ranks tied. The only thing left to do was use these rankings as weights to determine the overall score. Now that we've established, depending on if this is your first time watching one of my videos, let's get into this year's playoffs. This is sort of an update. A while back I made my first video, but since it was 34 minutes, not a lot of people stuck around for the whole thing, which, trust me, I understand. I have ADHD and it's very hard to hold my attention for longer than 5 minutes, much less 30 plus. But in that video, I did some EPI playoff projections. One thing that bugged me was I couldn't account for playoff experience. I was already skeptical about playoff experience overriding season-long success before, but I didn't want to go through compiling a list of playoff experience for each year. Well, after much thought, I decided to see how far I could get before getting exhausted. It took a week or so, and I only went back to the year 2000. But I think that is plenty of data. What I found was actually pretty amazing. For years and years, all we heard was playoff experience, this and that, and to some extent that was correct, but it's only one part of the equation. When the teams are closely matched up, have a similar EPI score, then experience plays a major factor. The farther apart they are, the less it becomes a factor. To be clear, this only includes players who average at least 15 minutes a game during those playoffs. But in 375 playoff series since 2000, the more experienced team is 233 and 142. That's a 62% win percentage. I was surprised because I figured it would be higher than that based on how much it's brought up when discussing the NBA playoffs year after year. Meanwhile, Vegas is about 66% and my own EPI rankings are 72% in that time span. But I wasn't satisfied. Just going by the higher seed in each round, you could get around 60%. I wanted to see if my EPI rankings and playoff experience could be combined. And guess what I found? I found that when doing this, it boosted my overall success to 80%. And in these playoffs, it's been spot on. Let's take a look. Here we have the EPI for each team. The EPI gap, or difference between the two teams, team territories, and the historical win rate of said gap or difference. As you see, the Thunder have an EPI gap of 73.26 on the Grizzlies, which has a historical win rate of 97%, which also means the Grizzlies have a historical win rate of just 3%. But it doesn't stop there. Playoff experience. The Thunder have 167 games of playoff experience coming into these playoffs from their players that play more than 15 minutes per game. The Grizzlies had 111, that's 56 games in favor of OKC. Historically, that's a 56% win rate for the higher experienced team. Now, I combined both EPI gap win rate and playoff experience gap win rate and divided it by 2 to come up with numbers for each team. This number represents the historical win rate of both categories averaged out. 76.5% for OKC for again 23.5% for Memphis. And what do you know, the Thunder swept them. Probably would have gone 5 or 6 had Memphis been completely healthy, but nevertheless the better team won. That's not a knock on Memphis. They had a great season for what they had to deal with, still ended up with 48 wins. Now, let's go to the next West matchup, Nuggets and Clippers. Man, this has been a great series. Looks that way on paper too. Nuggets had an EPI of 63.69, while the Clippers enjoyed an EPI of 74.6. That's a 10.91 difference in favor of the Clips. Historically, that's a 54% win rate for them. Now, playoff experience in this matchup isn't particularly a big deal. Both teams have over 400 games, but alas, we'll stick to the plan, because honestly, this won't happen very often. The Clippers have a 188 game lead on the Nuggets, which is a 56% win rate. Similar to the EPI anyway, so no real harm here. When adding them together, the Clippers have a 56% chance of winning. The series is tied 2-2, and it can go either way. Historically, this is a toss-up. I'll stick with the Clippers pick because that is the pick I had before the playoffs started. Onto the Lakers and Wolves. The series I got the most flack for over on TikTok and Reddit for my Wolves pick. The Lakers came into this postseason as the third seed, but only a 43.3 EPI. That's right, they were 56.6% worse than an average NBA champion. Meanwhile, the sixth-seeded Wolves came in with the second best EPI in the West and fourth best in the league at 78.73. That EPI gap of 35.43 is the fourth largest in the first round. Historically, the Wolves have an 85% win rate when a gap is at least this large. The Lakers have 15%. Now, playoff experience, having LeBron on your team, who has been in the playoffs almost every year since I was 19 years old and I'm pushing 40, means that they'll have the edge. And yes, they do. A 184 game edge to be exact. Put the Lakers in the 56% win rate zone. But that's not enough because the finals projection has the Wolves comfortable with a 64.5% chance of winning the series. And judging by their 3-1 lead, it sounds about right. On to the final matchup of the first round in the West, Warriors and Rockets. We know the Warriors are up 3-1. Many people, including myself, had a feeling this was coming, ironically because of experience. But not just that. Since getting Jimmy at the deadline, the Warriors had an EPI of 114, which is just behind the Cavs and Celtics. Overall, they had an EPI of 60.67, while the Rockets, the surprise team in the West, had an EPI of 73.03. That's a gap of 12.36. That's a win rate of 54% in favor of Houston. But remember when I said playoff experience doesn't mean a whole lot unless the teams are close in EPI? Well, these two teams are close in EPI and far apart in playoff experience. The Warriors have a whopping 336 more playoff games than the Rockets. That's a 72% win rate in favor of Golden State. Final winning projection has Golden State at 59%. Let's head over to the East. Not much to say about either of the top two seed matchups. The Cavs hold a final win rate of 74% over the Heat. They swept them. And the Celtics hold an 82% win rate projection over Orlando. That's most likely a gentleman's sweep. Now the Pacers and Bucks have an absurdly close EPI, just 0.86 separating the two. In this situation, EPI only, the higher seeded team holds a 59% win rate edge over the lower seeded team. Their playoff games only separate by 16, again super low, and that holds a 53% win rate in favor of the Bucks. The final win rate for this matchup has the Pacers with a 6% edge. Now add in no Dame for Game 1 and then his season-ending injury, and this gap widens a lot. In the future, I'll add player-by-player EPI, so it can react in real time to things like this. It would be handy for the regular season as well. But anyway, the Pacers just won the series not long ago, so this was right anyway. Just should have been more in Indiana's favor. Now, to the last series of the first round, Knicks-Pistons. I grew up a Pacers fan in the 90s and 2000s, before my city relocated, the Sonics to OKC. So I grew up hating the Knicks in the 90s and hating the Pistons in the 2000s. Doesn't matter. I'm just rambling now. Back to the series. The Knicks hold an EPI edge over the Pistons by 23, a 70% win rate. They also hold a 121 game edge in playoff experience too, which is only 55%, but their combined score is 63%, which means, at least according to this, they should close it out tonight or the next game. It's currently a really good game, as most of these have been. Beating New York 3 times in New York is highly unlikely, so advancing to the second round we have the Thunder, Clippers, Wolves, and Warriors in the West, and the Cavs, Pacers, Celtics, and Knicks in the East. I'm going to try to go through these quickly, as this video is already longer than I anticipated. The Thunder hold an EPI lead on the Clippers by 74 points, a 97% win rate. The Clips hold a 450 game lead in playoff experience, an 82% win rate. Thunder still comes out on top with a projection of 58%, mostly due to teams with an EPI gap this wide being an incredible 32-1, 35-1 if you count this season. Wolves and Warriors, if it happens, would be a great series. Wolves hold an 18-point advantage in EPI, which is a 54% win rate, but the Warriors hold the experience advantage with a 168 game lead. That's also a 54% win rate. The final combined score has the Warriors edging out Minnesota 50.15% to 49.85%. A true toss-up. The East is a little more cut and dry. Cavs hold an EPI edge on Indiana of 66.72, which is in the 91% range. No amount of playoff experience would make up for that, even if they had the edge significantly, which they don't. The Celtics have a similar story with the Knicks. They hold an EPI edge of 48, a win rate of 88%. They obviously hold the playoff experience edge by a wide margin as well. Their final win rate of 85% shouldn't surprise anyone. Conference Finals, Thunder versus Warriors. Thunder hold an EPI edge of 87.63, the largest conference finals gap in NBA history, or at least since 1989. Obviously, that's a 100% win rate for OKC. The Thunder aren't the only ones with a large win rate, though. The Warriors have a strong record when it comes to experience. Their 309-game edge holds an 81% win rate. The combined score has the Thunder on top with a 60% projected chance to win. However, post-trade deadline EPI of 114 for the Warriors could show through. Hypothetically, if their EPI was 114, that makes their gap 34, which carries an 81% win rate. And that makes this thing 50-50, with no more historical context. But to play that game, the Thunder have an EPI of 155 since the trade deadline, and that would tip the scales too. So we're not going to play that game just for the sake of trying to be right. Like I said originally, Thunder advance. Cavs and Celtics. Everyone in the East has been waiting on this since November. Cavs hold a 1.71 EPI advantage, and 58% of those go to the home team or higher seeded team. Celtics own the playoff experience advantage of 479 games, and that comes to a win rate of 82%, which means the Celtics advance with a 62% projection. And lastly, the finals, Celtics, Thunder. Not exactly a major surprise here. Thunder do hold a 30.06 EPI advantage over the Celtics, putting them in an 85% win rate. Celtics hold the playoff experience with a staggering 524 games. There have only been 18 matchups since 2000 with that kind of edge. And surprisingly, the higher experienced team is only 13-5, a 72% win rate. But to make up for the lack of matchups, I'm going to add the 400 game difference and up, and that comes out to 81%, which means the Thunder hold a 52% to 48% edge on the Celtics for the title this season, according to history since 2000. My title pick was the Celtics over the Thunder, but my own rankings are telling me it's OKC. Either way, let me know what you think in the comments. Please subscribe if you like content like this. And as usual, I love you guys, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it.